Please subscribe to this channel for more videos related to Catholic Christian teaching. In the posterity of Adam, the origin of the soul is associated with natural generation. As to the mode and manner of the origin of the soul, different opinions have been advanced. Pre-existentism, which was proposed by Plato and which in the early Christian era was accepted by Origen and individual members of his disciples, as well as by the Priscillianists, teaches that souls exist even before their connection with the bodies from all eternity, and are exiled in bodies as a punishment for moral defect. This doctrine was rejected by a synod at Constantinople against the Origenists and by a synod at Braga. Priscillianism was a Christian sect developed in the Roman province of Hispania in the 4th century by Priscillian. It is derived from the Gnostic doctrines taught by Marcus, an Egyptian from Memphis. Among his many unorthodox doctrines, Priscillian taught that angels and human souls emanated from the Godhead, that bodies were created by the devil, and that human souls were joined to bodies as a punishment for sins. The idea of a pre-existence of the soul and of a pre-corporeal fall through sin is unknown to sacred scripture. Again, the passage, "And I was a witty child and had received a good soul, and whereas I was more good, I came into a body undefiled," is not to be understood in the sense of the Platonic doctrine of pre-existence, as the anthropological conceptions of the Book of Wisdom are entirely different from those of Plato. According to the testimony of sacred scripture, the first man created by God was good in soul and body. Sin entered the world through the fall by sin of our first parents. St. Paul in Romans chapter 9 verse 11 directly excluded a pre-corporeal fall through sin. For when the children were not yet born, nor had done any good or evil. The fathers, with very few exceptions, are opponents of the doctrine of pre-existence upheld by Origen. The testimony of self-consciousness testifies against the pre-existence of the soul. Emmanationism, which was represented in antiquity by Gnostic Manichaean dualism and which in modern times is taught by pantheism, teaches that individual souls proceed by emanation from the divine substance. The teaching contradicts the absolute simplicity of God. It was rejected by the First Vatican Council together with pantheism as heretical. St. Augustine says, "The soul is not a part of God, for if it were, then it would be in every respect unchangeable and indestructible." Generationism traces the origin of the human soul as well as the origin of the body back to the act of generation performed by the parents. According to it, parents are the originators of both body and soul. The cruder form of generationism, that is, the traducianism, expounded by Tertullian, teaches that with the corporeal semen, a part of the soul substance of the parents is transmitted to the child. A less crude form of generationism, which was held by St. Augustine to be possible, and in the past century by Klee, Rosmini, and others to be probable, holds fast to the spiritualness of the soul and makes the soul of the child emerge from a spiritual semen or seed of the parents. Generationism is incompatible with the simplicity and spiritualness of the soul. Pope Benedict XII demanded the condemnation of the doctrine of generationism. Leo XIII condemned the teaching of Rosmini. Creationism, taught by the vast majority of the fathers, by the scholastics, and by modern theology, holds that each individual soul is created by God out of nothing at the moment of its unification with the body. The doctrine is not defined. It is, however, indirectly expressed in the doctrinal decision of the Fifth General Lateran Council. According to the great number of bodies into which it is individually infused, it is multiplied. Pope Alexander VII, in a doctrinal assertion of the Immaculate Conception of Mary, which formed the basis of the dogmatic definition of Pius IX, speaks of the creation and infusion of her soul into the body, from the first instant of its creation and infusion into the body. A stringent scriptural proof of the doctrine of creationism is not possible. However, it is intimated in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7. The spirit returns to God who gave it. In Wisdom chapter 15, verse 11, infusion by God of the soul by God into the body. And Hebrews chapter 12, verse 9, distinction between the fathers of the flesh and the Father of the spirits, who is God. Most of the fathers, especially the Greek, are adherents of creationism. While St. Jerome decisively advocates creationism, St. Augustine wavered all his life between generationism and creationism. The difficulty of reconciling the immediate creation of the soul by God with the handing on of original sin held him back from a decisive confession of creationism. In the following centuries, under the influence of St. Augustine, a certain indecision continued up to the period of the peak of scholasticism, when creationism found a general recognition. St. Thomas Aquinas went so far as to condemn generationism as heretical. According to the Aristotelian scholastic viewpoint, in the human embryo, three different forms of life follow one another in point of time, in such a manner that the following at any time takes over the functions of the preceding, namely the vegetative, the sensitive, and finally the spiritual. From this derives the distinction between an unformed fetus and a formed fetus. Confirmation of this was sought in Exodus chapter 21, verse 22 to 23. The fetus informis was regarded as being purely animal, the fetus formatus a human being, the destruction of which was regarded as murder. Modern Christian philosophy generally holds that the creation and infusion of the spiritual soul coincides with the moment of conception. Please go to YouTube Retirementality channel, playlist Divine Act of Creation for the complete series of these materials.